Is there a way that this could be formalized in your opinion?
I think, first of all, with networking, number one, it's not about handing out your business card. And honestly, the key to a good networking meeting is that you only talk 10% of the time. Let the other person talk 90% of the time. Ask them questions to learn their story, what they're doing, what they're working on, and who and how you can help them. And it's always be giving. In the old days, networking was hard. Today, life is pretty easy to do these types of things with social media and everything else. But I think too often people are always looking, what can I get? Not what can I give? And it's just that shift of mindset, number one. And then you do have to build systems around it. How do you keep track of the notes of the conversation? When do you follow up? How do you follow up in doing that appropriately?
Welcome to the Spear and Clover podcast, the show where military mindset meets the spirit of the puppy. I'm your host, Jason Skisick, the entrepreneurial evangelist, and each week I bring you the stories of visionaries who see the world as it could be and can't help but take action. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and review. This is the best way to stay in the loop when we drop new content. Don't forget that this conversation continues at spearandclover.com, where you can learn more about the show and get access to free training and tools for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, have you put in the hard work, overcome obstacles, and taken action on multiple roles in your business, yet still somehow can't seem to get to the next level? Don't worry, you're not alone, and we have a solution to help you. The truth is, what got you where you are won't get you where you want to go. In fact, this may be the exact thing that's holding you back. Dynasty organizations that grow and last must be able to produce industry-leading results consistently without reliance on specific leaders, role players, or even playbooks. So where do you begin? I am beyond excited to announce the launch of our new companion podcast, Dynasty Defined. The purpose of this show is to teach you inside details of what it takes to create your very own dynasty and live your ideal entrepreneurial life. Each week, I'll ask dynasty builders 11 questions in under 12 minutes to reveal only the essential details that have helped them to grow profitable, scalable, and valuable businesses. You can find Dynasty Defined on YouTube and across all major audio platforms. Don't miss out on this valuable resource. Tune in to Dynasty Defined and start building your dynasty today. Oh, and by the way, when you're ready to play from home, visit www.spearandclover.com to learn more about our Dynasty Defined Entrepreneurs course. I think it's easy for us to think that the solution to our financial problems is to just make more money. And yet, who doesn't know somebody who makes a ton of cash and yet somehow is living paycheck to paycheck? The truth is, if your behaviors and habits aren't dialed, you'll always be poor, no matter how much money you make. I like to say that if you drive in a filthy and messy jalopy now, being able to afford a Mercedes won't help you. Today's guest has made a name for himself as a Chief Profitability Officer, which is to say, he helps entrepreneurs keep more of their money and learn the wealthy habits and behaviors that will grow your wealth indefinitely. The host of the Profit Answer Man podcast, as well as the owner of Profit Comes First, please welcome my friend, Rocky Lalvani. Rocky, how are you, brother?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me here today, Jason, to talk about my favorite subject.
I hope that means yourself, because I'm gonna dive in on you a little bit too. I know you mean profit, but thank you so much. I just said before we started recording how I'm pleased that you and I have been speaking a little bit more frequently lately, and I hope to continue that trend into the future, because the stuff that you do is incredibly valuable, and especially to me as I'm trying to work out some of those poor people habits as well. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about you and what you do, and we'll kind of jump off from there.
You want to know about me, the personal side, or me, the business side?
Well, I'd like to hear about you and what you do, so it's up to you how you want to frame that.
All right. Well, I think first and foremost, I'm a dad.
Yeah.
and a husband, married for 27, coming up on 28 years. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. My wife's like, how many of these have there been? And I did the math quickly. So
Yeah.
she was happy. Uh, two kids doing well. I got to spend time with them as they were growing up. So I think that part of it is a lot of fun. I mean, at the end of the day, we make money to live life. And if you're not living the life that you're making the money for, or you're giving up the life in the meantime, then we've got a major problem. So I think that's kind of the take home message. And what I do now, I'm a spreadsheet geek. I look at numbers, I see stories, I see patterns. And I assume most business owners understood the business of business. And so it was an eye opener to me to find out and learn that that wasn't the case. What I learned is they do what they love, and accounting usually isn't on the list,
Mm.
which means they're going to struggle with it. And at the end of the day, you've got to have good cash flow to be able to survive. And as you mentioned in the opening, a lot of people will focus on the top line. We say top line is vanity, bottom line is sanity, and cash flow is reality. You can sell as much as you want, and that's great. Very few people have the skills and the gift to hold on to that money and then to redeploy it outside the business to build multiple streams of income and to
Mm.
truly build wealth and dynasties.
Yeah, and thank you for tying in my little pet word there. But I couldn't agree more. So I'm not sure. I'm sure we've talked about it, but I have a financial analyst background. I certainly was not meant to be a financial analyst or an underwriter or a banker for my life, but I definitely understand what learning that language means. When you talk about telling a story, when you talk about the difference between revenue, profit, and cash flow, particularly cash flow. I don't know if you could maybe outline. I think some people think cash flow is just profit. How does cash flow separate itself from profit in simple terms?
So the reports that you are given by your accounting professionals, they are designed for accountants. They're designed for you to pay taxes. They don't tell you how much money you actually made, even though they pretend to on a profit and loss statement. Profit and loss statement does not tie to your bank account. It does not tie to how much cash you actually have. And it comes back to the thing, right? When business owners see that they're short of cash, what do? They go out and they sell. Oh, cool, I got the order. But here's the question: did you get paid?
Mm-hmm.
Because until you get paid, nothing has changed. And so if you're out selling, but they're not paying you day one, well, now you're digging yourself into a bigger hole. You got even more work to do, even more cash going out the door, not in the door, and that creates a problem. So I think it's just the fact that people are looking at their accounting reports, which are nice, but they're all historical and they don't give a clear picture of how much cash you actually have and what's coming up tomorrow and over the next couple of months that you're going to have to pay for.
Yeah, I remember the very first few months that we really started to make cash, to make money in our business. Several years ago, I thought I was on top of the world. We had spent about 6 months kind of stacking sales that were spread out over time, like you were talking about. And we took a vacation. We basically turned off ads for an entire month, and I was on vacation for 2 weeks of that month. And by the time I got home, my account was negative. It was my first, and I had already been a financial analyst. It was the first time I learned the real life entrepreneurial lesson about just how quickly that cash flow crunch can happen. And so it is so crucial that you understand that concept you were just talking about. So as we seek as entrepreneurs and small businesses to manage cash flow, what are some things that we can do that will help us to avoid that cash flow crunch situation like I just described?
Never stop selling.
I have a lot of friends who would say that one. Yeah. Yeah.
And here's where the problem comes up, because you do a bunch of sales, then you get busy delivering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think you get on the roller coaster ride. You always have to keep your marketing machine moving.
Mm.
You don't have to turn up the speed on it. You can turn it up and down, but it's always got to be moving, because there is a sales cycle of, when they first learn about you till when they actually pay you, which is sometimes long after you deliver your product. So being aware of that and keeping that machine in motion, I think, is number one.
Hmm.
Um, Profit First is basically a cash flow management system designed for entrepreneurs by an entrepreneur. So it really helps to give you real time access to how much cash do you have and what's the purpose of your cash. Because too often business owners, they pay for everybody else first. They cover all their expenses. They pay themselves last. They forget that they owe the government taxes. And the word profit, although it's wonderful, doesn't seem to be that profitable for most business owners. What Profit First does is reverse all of that and it make it systematic so that you do take profit first, you pay yourself first because you do need to pay yourself. I mean, no doubt about that. You save for taxes and then we constrain our spending because too often in business we throw money at problems. And that's where we get in trouble. Instead of being more resourceful, we use up all our resources and then we're kind of screwed.
Yeah, just to react to that, that is such a common entrepreneurial problem. Forgetting even for a second the profit first part of it, which I want to dig into more. This idea of most entrepreneurs will tell you that they're most entrepreneurial when they felt the most alive was when they felt like they were, with their backs against the wall, fighting their way uphill to build their business in the beginning, or when they first, really got traction, to borrow a phrase. Uh, and and I think so often that those same entrepreneurs, once they have steady cash flow, once they have teams energizing things for them, the rubric with which they make decisions is no longer nearly as lean and efficient, and now it can get gluttonous and wasteful. Is that sort of a good way to describe what you're talking about?
Well, yes. And as soon as you start having employees, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you incentivized an employee not to spend money?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's not something I currently have to do, but I do love when you see these incentive programs that are tied to, cap space on a budget or whatever that may be. That's a fascinating way to look at it. I think you see that sometimes now in governments trying to start to do that, and we certainly have done it for things like retention and client services and fulfillment. So is it then when we shift back to profit first, it sort of seems to me, and I'm going to be honest with you, I've never read the book. I know of the book. I've known of the book for years. I've worked with people that love it. I think that this is the conversation that is going to push me over the edge to actually taking the plunge. However, it seems to me it's almost like we're taking a budget and we're putting it in bank account form. Is that a way to think about it?
So budgets are like diets, they suck.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it more, we are telling our cash where to flow, right? And if you want to be profitable, then tell your cash to flow to profit.
Mm.
If you want to get paid, tell your cash to flow to your pay. And yeah, you have to have expenses in your business, but you need to constrain them. So you've got to constrain how much money you give your business to operate on. Because the truth of the matter is, your business follows what's called Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law says we will use up all the time and money that are allocated to the business. So if you've got a project and somebody comes to you and says, well, we've got this project. Well, what is your timeline and what's your budget? Whatever your timeline and budget are, that's what it's going to be. You tell them 6 months and 100 grand, it's going to be 7 months and 110 grand.
Yeah.
You tell them 4 weeks and 20 grand, it'll be 4 weeks and 20 grand, right? And people ask, well, how can this be possible? How can you do it so much faster and quicker? That comes down to the 80-20 rule. 20% of what you do produces 80% of the results. When you're constrained, when you have to do everything last minute, you get it done, you do it efficiently and quickly, you don't waste time, and your business still continues to run well. And so
Mm.
that's really what it's all about. It's about constraining the business and keeping it lean and mean.
I couldn't agree more with that. And actually, I'm curious if you live that way because I've been talking to people about that lately a lot. I have a perfect week calendar that I use to structure my week. And when I used to work, let's just say 40 hours, there's probably more, but let's say I worked 40 hours a week. I've just blocked my calendar now to where I only have 20 hours a week on my scheduler. And then if I need to, sure, I'll take one appointment here or one appointment there. And what I've found is I fit the same amount of dynamite into that smaller vessel, and it's just made my life much more efficient. But you don't strike me as a last minute operator. Do you live that way? Do you find that you constrain your time in order to produce a more potent result?
I do somewhat constrain my time. I also constrain my availability. Like my
Yeah.
calendar is constrained.
Hmm.
So it does limit who can put themselves onto my calendar. But the other way I constrain it is I know what enough is. So I constrain my top line revenue and I just say, "Hey, this is what I need to make and I'm not going to work harder." So I'm going to keep my time freedom because that's more important to me than another buck. So I do it that way. It all depends on how your life is organized, how your calendar is organized. I think most people don't have. I'm big into systems and processes and building out things to make everything go faster. I mean, I use text expander. I don't repeat type things over and over. Everything's shortcuts. So I'm constantly figuring out how to be more efficient with my time.
Hmm. I for the listener at home and for me, what is text expander? That's interesting.
Oh, text expander, all the things that you normally type all the time, you create a shortcut for. So I don't know how many times I type my email out, and I've got a couple of them. So on my thing, I just type ZEM1 and that just drops my email in. It's Z email, the first one. And I've got four others. I can do one, two, three, or four. If I type um if I need my address, I just put two numbers and my entire address goes down.
Hmm.
Websites, like who in the hell can spell Mike McAllowitz? I can't. So I've got a shortcut that spells the whole name out for me because these are the things that I'm frequently typing. So if there's things that you're constantly doing, even this, we're on Zoom, right? If you're on Zoom and you're networking a lot and you've got a standard something that you share every time, like your contact information and all, and maybe your calendar, well, you can create a shortcut and you type a couple keystrokes and it drops it in there. Same thing for my calendar.
Hmm.
Like I can, I have ZB15, which is book me 15, ZB30. And then I realized, oh, sometimes, I have to add a little bit more to saying, it's just courtesy. And when I'm writing an email, hey, do you have a calendar or would you like to use mine? So then it's ZB31, which it adds the extra text in there. And I don't have to keep thinking in repetitive stuff.
Man, Rocky, we're different guys, but we would be very close if we could spend time together. I love, love, love that. For starters, I'm just imagining you with like the quarterback laminated sweatband, and you like flip it up, and it's got every play written down in like small letters. Do you have it like laminated or somewhere where it's
I,
like a resource?
I don't. What I have learned is to use letters that are just naturally
Mm.
linguistic to me.
Yep.
So we use Z because Z creates very few words and you're typing this. So
Hmm.
you've got to create a unique keystroke that isn't going to get messed up with something else. So if I used A, there'd be too many limitations, right?
Yep.
Million words with A, hardly any with Z. Z's also right there on the bottom left of the keyboard. So it's easy to get to. So ZB15 is Z book me 15 minutes. That's it.
Mm.
Or for my podcast, it's Z. I use Libsyn. Z Libsyn podcast drops my entire template for my podcast right in there. And then I just have to copy and paste the specialization of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that tip was worth the price of admission for today's podcast. You're working on house money from here on in. I will add, this is the best implementation I've heard of this. But there's a famous sales coach named Cole Gordon. He's fantastic. I was in his program. Have learned a ton from that organization, and they have their sales reps will load in the entire sales script with multiple different decision trees into a format very similar. And that, I don't know if Text Expander is an app or not. I didn't quite catch it, but the keyboard feature of an Apple iPhone, you can do that natively in the keyboard feature with shortcuts. So I'm not sure, is Text Expander like an app or something?
Text Expander is desktop based.
Okay.
So I use it desktop. And yeah, if I know I'm going to send the same email to 20 people, I will put it into Text Expander. And then I just type those Z email and then what number email I want to use. And boom, it drops it in. And now I just have to put your name in and it's all customized. Yeah.
All right, let's zoom back out. What is the person like as a kid, growing up, finding his way in the world, that ends up with that type of system helping elite entrepreneurs become more elite and save their money? What were you like growing up? How did you end up making your way to this?
So I was an entrepreneur as a kid. I wanted to make money. When I was probably 13 years old, I was going into New York City, buying stuff wholesale, bringing it back and marketing up double, selling it to my friends. Had the paper route, did all of that kind of stuff. I was also a tech geek. So I was playing with spreadsheets when the first one came out called VisiCalc 40 years ago. So there's that. But here's the reality. Are you familiar with Myers-Briggs?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So I classify as INTJ, which means I'm an ops guy. That's just the way everything I think about is systems and operations and just doing things lean and easily. And to me, everything is a system. Every problem has a system solution. You just figure out the system and you keep improving it. You'll just keep building efficiency. But that's just my natural way of doing things. I'm not the creative. So, the creatives have a whole different way of doing things. Like you can't give them systems. They don't get it. But if you help a creative build a system, they can get a lot more workflow through because now they have a process to follow of how we're going to do things. And even other things, like I create massive checklists for everything. So we can create a checklist for it because it's a repeatable, not often enough thing that I might not do every day, but I do it maybe once or twice a month. Having a checklist, you just go down, you stop thinking and you start doing.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Have you ever seen a super creative entrepreneur who maybe is amazing and evangelical and creative and bombastic? Have you seen anybody like that able to retain a system once you give it to them, or do they always sort of need that implementer that's going to be able to show up day to day and cross the T's and dot the I's?
According to Gino Wickman, you need the marriage of the both.
You do. Yeah, I think you
You
did
do.
too.
Just by their very nature, they are ADD. Like they're not going to sit, and you shouldn't constrain them in that way because now they're not being the best that they're being. However, they're not the person to implement. They're the ones who got the great idea. They sell the idea. They take it out to the edges. Then somebody behind them needs to implement. And I think that's what everybody needs to realize is you've got a partner. The problem most people do in business is they partner with somebody like them instead of the exact opposite. You really should partner with somebody who's totally different than you, who fills in your gaps, who will challenge your thinking, and who will do that. So we've got a saying, and it's more for coaches. It's actually for business owners. Average business owners want to be left alone. Good business owners want to be coached. Great business owners want to be told the truth. And if you're not willing to accept the truth and get yourself a little bit ruffled and sharpened and, then you're not going to do well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's I think that's 2 episodes we've just bought right there, because that's another one worth the price of entry for sure. I think for even folks like me, I am passable as an implementer of my own stuff, but certainly will do better with somebody there that's always going to be focused on that, so I can be out hunting, right? And that's definitely the role that I occupy, and I think a lot of folks that are the CEO or that are the visionaries are that way.
So I'll give you a secret about Profit First.
Mm-hmm.
I've had guys come on my podcast who implemented Profit First. They took the book, they handed it to their bookkeeper and said, do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it all runs in the background, and they know that everything is fine. If there's a problem, they're told. And that's how people like that implement systems. They put somebody in charge of it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's smart. So, what do you do for fun, Rocky? What do you do when you're not stacking cash for yourself and others?
Well, as I said at the beginning, I spent a lot of my time raising kids,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're gone. So I've kind of gotten time back. I love to read, as you can tell.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it now. Yeah. Lately, we've been spending more time in the business and improving the business
Mm.
in that space. And then the other part is just networking and being with people. Um, because I think before all of this, I was coaching soccer, I was coaching robotics, I was doing Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and I had all my fun. We've traveled the world. So it's like, we've been out to wonderful dinners. I've had dinner cooked by a White House chef for us. I've had fine wine. I've done all that stuff. Now it's just kind of focusing really on giving back and helping at this portion, because I know this is a short stint, in another 5, 7, I don't know how many years, I'll be a grandfather. Then I'm going to go busy doing that.
Yeah, talk to me about the role that mentorship has played in your life, because what you're alluding to there outside of the family is mentorship, menteeship, masterminding, things like that. Talk to me about the role that that played early in your career from above, and then talk to me about now how it's playing a role in your career in this chapter.
So early on, at work, it wasn't there. Like
Mm,
it just did not exist. I think a lot of it is I grew up in the old culture of previous generations and how they did things. And it just wasn't the norm. On my own, I have found a lot of mentorship and mastermind groups. So I've been in multiple mastermind groups. I'm in one now. I lead one now. Um, that has been quite helpful. Having a personal coach has been helpful. Going to a variety of different programs from all of the different guys that are out there and women has been quite helpful. But I will tell you, you have to watch out, because I think a lot of the people who are great at marketing, who are out there, they don't always understand that there is a balance to life.
mm.
Life and business have to go together. If you're out of harmony with everything else, I don't care how much money you're making, your life is miserable.
Yeah, that's something that I speak about often, and I couldn't agree more. That's the whole concept of Spear and Clover, is enjoying your life and pursuing your passions while you're working hard towards those goals, right? So we're certainly aligned there, unsurprisingly. Rocky, what about you talked about robotics? What do you do for coaching robotics? What's that like?
My kids were on a robotics team. So it's a lot more than building the robot, and there's a lot involved in the competition. So what I like to do, even with soccer and even with robotics, we use the platform to teach the skills of life.
Mm,
Right. So we're in robotics. We spend in excess of 10 grand a year. So I'm going to teach my kids how to go ask for money. And I'm not talking doing, the little thing on the side of the road we're asking for 5 grand. Like, we're going to go make pitches to
yeah.
corporate and to other places. You're going to learn how to write a grant. You're going to learn how to tell your story, doing all of that. Then also just learning how to build the robot, how to connect with the engineering community and find mentors, how to do all of that stuff. So that really helped my kids. Instead of playing amongst other kids, they're learning to connect in the adult world. And they're learning valuable life lessons through all of that. How do we budget? How do we determine how much we're spending? How do we pick where we're going to compete? Um, Part of the competition is other teams pick you. So how do you learn to position yourself best for the draft, right? It's like NFL draft Sunday. How do you play that skill set? How do you build relationships so that other people are going to come and want to partner with you? So million skills to learn. It's just using the platform to teach all the skills of leadership in life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there because one thing I will say is having been through, public school, having been in a private school, having gone to multiple different colleges, as well as been in the military, I really never learned the skill of the word is networking. I'm not a big fan of the word, but it is the word, right? It's,
Mhm.
I think people that do it wrong call it networking and people that do it right call it networking too. But, I think that's so valuable because there just wasn't anybody that taught me how to, hey, follow up, do this, do that until I usually don't say the name, but until I got to JP Morgan. I worked at JP Morgan and their culture is built around this idea of networking and really valuing relationships in the bank, relationships outside of the bank, never burning bridges, even if you separate from the company. Like that was instilled in me so heavily and so valuably that it has carried me to what I think I'm one of the better, and you're very good at this as well, one of the better networkers as a solo entrepreneur that I'm aware of. Is there a way that this could be formalized in your opinion for our students or our people in, young life?
Well, so I think first of all, with networking, number one, it's not about handing out your business card,
Right. Yeah.
right? And honestly, the key to a good networking meeting is that you only talk 10% of the time. Let the other person talk 90% of the time. Ask them questions to learn their story, what they're doing, what they're working on, and who and how you can help them. And it's always be giving. Isn't that what Jordan Harbinger says? Always be giving. I think that's his um I've had to learn this myself,
Hmm.
right? Because it was not a skill that I had in the past. And I think in the old days, networking was hard. You got somebody's phone number and then they moved and they changed their phone number. And, what do I got to look through a million yellow page directories? Today, life is pretty easy to do these types of things with social media and everything else. But I think too often people are always looking, what can I get? Not what can I give? And it's just that shift of mindset, number one. And then you do have to build systems around it. How do you keep track of the notes of the conversation? When do you follow up? How do you follow up in doing that appropriately? And literally going back to text expander, you probably can build a couple of texts that just, automatic to start a conversation.
Yeah, I think the comment about asking questions and really not speaking as much certainly has helped. I talk a lot on this podcast, but it certainly has helped me as a podcaster, but as a friend, as a husband, even. I'll shout out to the book "Never Split the Difference" by Chris Voss. Very much gives you the outline of how do you engage in conversations where you're actively listening and demonstrating curiosity for learning more about the person you're talking to, and you learn so quickly how much people value that and how much you can just become a more enriching friend and colleague. And I think that it leads, as you're saying, certainly, whether you want to call it karma or not, leads to things coming back in return. But more importantly, you have a richer, more depth of and breadth of relationships. Wouldn't you agree?
You do. I will tell you something, and this is the one thing I've learned. Um, it's an asymmetrical type of an outreach. In other words, you might reach out to 100 people and you might do this with 100 people and maybe only 10 will reciprocate and maybe 5 will only be a great connection. But a lot of times in business, one connection can make your world.
Hmm.
And so that's what, you're looking to continue to do that and you never know how it's going to happen. And a lot of these things just take time. Just go out and plant seeds, and eventually you'll have a forest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, Rocky, there's two questions that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and I would like to ask you those two questions now. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. The first question is, if you had access to unlimited financial capital, how would you profitably grow your current business?
I don't know that we need more capital. Is that not the answer most people say?
You know what? Can I be honest with you, Rocky?
Yeah.
That is the answer that I wrote the question for and have never gotten it.
Oh,
That's the answer I was looking for when I asked that first question the first time, is you actually already have access to all of
yeah.
the capital that you would need. You're just not efficiently accessing it or getting it or using it, right?
We have, I mean, with Profit First, you build excess capital. So I don't need more capital. I have it. And we don't need outside financing because we self-finance. You build good operations, they should profitably run your business and give you excess. That's just the reality of it.
You nailed it, buddy. That was really great. I love it. I love it. By the way, there's no right question to that answer, but that is the answer I would give if somebody asked me it. Is that in fact you have access to the entire marketplace of capital should you earn it essentially and use it effectively. So I love, love, love that answer. Best answer I've gotten. Second question, pretty high stakes here, Rocky. Second question is, if you had to give up this business, any business you've ever done in the past, and try something totally new that you've never tried before as a business, what do you think that might be?
I'm not giving up this business.
I
I
know, but
I I took the time.
yeah,
No, but truly, like this, it took me forever to create this. So yeah, if I had to give this up, honestly, it would probably be something about leading young people and teaching them life skills they truly need. That's the only other thing I'd ever do besides this. Those are the two things I do now. And yeah, I love my business because I built it for me.
yeah.
I didn't care if I made money. Of course I do, but I built it to do what I loved. And I
Love
figured out how to make money doing it.
it. At the end of the day, Rocky, what is the impact that you want to leave on the world?
Um, I'm not looking to make a big impact. We've talked about my kids. I mean, at the end of the day, 10 years after I die, probably the only people going to remember me are my kids. So I want to make sure I've done a good job with them
Yeah.
and impacting them. And they're the ones who will carry out the legacy and do that. Eventually I'll have grandkids. And so we'll impact that. I honestly, at the end of the day, I'm not looking to change the world. The only person I'm looking to change is me.
Oh, that's beautiful, Rocky. Well, listen, if they're still listening, they definitely want to hear more about you. Share with the listeners how they can find more about you and get more information about what you do.
So before you share about me, can you do me a favor? Can you give some love to Jason here? If you love the episode, share it, give it to a friend, hit the like button. Just do something to say thank you for Jason. And then if you've got time after that, you can find me at profitcomesfirst.com and you'll find I have two podcasts. Jason's been on both and you can hear his story there. One is all about the numbers. The other is all about how do we lead the better life.
Love it. Thank you so much, Rocky. I appreciate this. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, my friend. This is great. I appreciate your time.